as important as that is. So just a few examples. With Justice Scalia on the bench, the court vacated or overturned a core part of the Voting Rights Act. We are seeing the consequences of that decision really for the first time in this election, where we have more voter ID restrictions in 2016 than at any point since before the Civil Rights Act. So we've gone back more than 50 years. Since 2010, there have been more than 300 laws passed at the state and local level restricting a woman's right to choose. Effectively, what many of those have done is to also restrict a woman's right to health care. So while we saw the court last week argue, or listen to arguments without Justice Scalia on the bench about one law in Texas, this is a fight that is happening across our country. And if HB 2 stands in Texas or is not struck down by the court, more than 25% of women in Texas will lose access to affordable, even free health care. So if you care about a woman's right to choose, or you care about a woman's right to health care, or even if you care about equity, since wealthier women in our country have always had choices, and working class women have not always had choices, I think you have to care about the Supreme Court. If you look at gun control, with Justice Scalia on the bench, the court had an uneven record on gun control. Sometimes it upheld local and state gun control measures as being compliant with the Second Amendment, and sometimes it struck them down. So Moms Demand Action, the Brady campaign, the major efforts for smart, sensible gun control in our country say they believe the next time the court rules, it will be a definitive ruling, where the court will say once and for all, this is what Second Amendment gun control looks like and can be in our country. So if you care about gun control, just like if you care about a woman's right to choose or voting rights, I think you have to care about the Supreme Court. We saw in a week before Justice Scalia's passing, the court took an almost unprecedented decision to preemptively say President Obama's executive actions to shutter coal-fired power plants and move the United States forward in the fight against climate change. The court will make a final ruling on that later this year or early next year. So if you care about climate change, you have to care about the Supreme Court. While the court now has guaranteed a constitutional right to every American to marry, it is still legal in 31 states to discriminate on the basis of gender identity or sexual orientation in housing, in education, in healthcare, and employment. Many of those laws are being challenged, and some of those challenges are expected to reach the court next year. So if you care about equal rights, I think you have to care about the Supreme Court. It's also, if you care about immigration reform, you have to care about the Supreme Court. The list goes on and on and on. And we need a president who understands we don't live in a single issue country. And President Obama certainly understands that. And I strongly hope the Senate does indeed do its job and gives whomever he nominates a full and fair hearing. And yet, even if that happens, this question is not going away. Because if you look at the average age on the court, and the average age historically at which justices have retired, the next president could appoint 1, 2, or maybe even 3 additional justices to the court, shaping the court literally for a generation. So this is an issue that has relevance today, but one that's going to continue to have relevance. So clearly I'm deeply passionate about my mom, and I'm incredibly grateful to be her daughter. Artie and I were talking backstage. I've only grown my gratitude now as a working mom.